sound. I guess my Bluetooth was having issues, but this is part 2 of my due on sale saga. We have a note being called due on a Subject 2 deal that we bought 3 years ago. Now this is my first due on sale. Done over, I don't know, 50 Subject 2s, most of which I hold still and have a connection to still. So this is obviously a new experience for me, definitely a learning experience, a scary, terrifying experience. It's really not that terrifying because we're confident that we would just pay this thing off cash and then refinance it into a DSCR loan, and we'd be okay that way. But I just got off the phone with the lender and talked to a representative there for an hour and a half. Now, she was awesome. She was very happy to be there, very happy to help, was trying to figure out why our loan was being called due. And eventually she got me in touch with the right person. I'll just kind of fast forward to the end of this story. The right person talked to me and said, hey, the legal team is the one who's going to be able to give you a firm answer on what needs to happen if this due on sale can get resolved or not. So can you be available next Tuesday for a phone call with the legal department? I said, absolutely. So that's how the story ended. But all the background and context on this deal, it's a Subject 2 deal, really good interest rate. We bought it back in 2022. We've made every single payment on time. We deeded it into a trust. It is a VA loan, and no problems with anything so far, except that we kind of had one huge faux pas that we made when we originally bought the deal, and I created a YouTube video documenting this experience, and I called it, I think, my due on sale nightmare. I published it around Halloween a couple years ago, actually. So today's Halloween, and this is a good time to revisit that particular deal. But on that deal, when we bought this house Subject 2, our mobile notary that was signing with the seller sent all of the documents to the lender, all of the Subject 2 documents, the deed, the trust, and instead it to the title company. So when the title company didn't receive the closing documents, it dawned on us that, oh dang, where did they send the documents? They sent them to the lender. And so we actually had to re-execute the whole deal in order to close. But that shadow hanging over, living in the shadow of knowing that the lender received this big package with all of these sale documents and Sub2 documents, was very uncomfortable for a time. But eventually it just wasn't an issue and the deal moved forward. And truthfully, I don't know if the lender ever read those documents, right? Because if maybe whoever opened up that package looked at the documents and was like, what the heck is this? They probably threw them in the trash, you know? So I have no idea if us sending our Sub2 packet to the lender has any weight or causality in the note being called due on this deal. Now, this is my first due on sale. Over 50 Sub2s, most of which I hold still and have a connection to. And so this is a learning experience for me. Now, I've also seen attorneys handle Sub2s. I know I'm in some groups and I've seen attorneys handle them and other investors handle them. So I have a high degree of confidence that we're going to be able to get this due on this acceleration of the note stopped. I think that there's a probability of that, a strong probability of that happening. But even if it doesn't happen and we have to pay it off, we'll do it and we'll salvage the deal because it's the right thing to do. We cannot fail our owner finance buyers, obviously. We can't have them losing the house because we sold it to them on a land contract. So we have got to figure this out. We will definitely do that, but it would be far more ideal if we simply can provide the lender what they need, which could be simply, and this was my phone conversation with the representative. I'm just trying to figure out, hey, the letter that we received stated that if the deed could get transferred back into the name of the borrowers, then that would ameliorate the situation. Now, there was a deadline of October 1st, which now it's obviously October 31st. We did not see that letter until 2 weeks ago. So I guess what we're trying to figure out now is if we were to deed the house back into the borrower's names, would that just stop the foreclosure full sale and we're done? Now, if we were to do that, we would be giving some small financial compensation to the borrowers because this is like a no equity deal. We have made some money on it, but we would want to give a little bit of financial incentive to the sellers, or so, yeah, the sellers slash borrowers. We're going to say, hey, we're going to deed this back to you, but we need another deed back to us into the trust. So that way, if, obviously we need to control the property still. We can't just deed it back to them and leave it because then it's their house, right? So the goal here would be to deed it back to them. We can do that because we are the grantors. Grantees don't have to sign anything. We just deed it to them, record it, boom. House is in their name, but then we would need them to sign a new quitclaim deed back to the trust and create a new trust, do that whole thing again. Maybe also get a contract for deed with the borrowers, actually, because on VA loans, contract for deeds are expressly allowed. So you can actually sell your equitable interest in the property on a contract for deed if it's a VA loan. That's actually in the VA guidelines somewhere. I've read it, I've seen it, and we'd be pretty safe if we just left the house in their name and had a sort of master contract for deed, which would allow us to also have a buyer on a contract for deed from us as well. Kind of like a master lease, similar concept. But we'll see if any of that's necessary because I'll give you a little bit more background and then I'm gonna have to piece out here shortly. The letter that they sent to us said that the deed had transferred. The reason they're calling the note due was because the deed had transferred. And that's what my representative on the phone told me. They were messaging in real time the foreclosure department. And she was like, oh, the foreclosure department just read my message. Looks like they're responding back. So this was all happening in real time. She was an awesome rep. She was trying to contact her manager, trying to contact the foreclosure department, seeing if she could get an answer on what we needed to do to stop the acceleration of the note. And the foreclosure department said the reason for the foreclosure is because of the deed transfer that was not authorized by the lender. And then we read through the letter that we received, and they state that the deed was transferred to me, and then they attach evidence, and what they attached was an affidavit and memorandum of an agreement to sell real estate with my name on it. What's interesting is that that's not even a deed. That's not a deed. And so my representative understood. She's like, yeah, that's not a deed. So why would they be calling the note due just because of a filed affidavit of an intent to buy or to sell real estate? That's not a deed. And so we were like, well, can we ask them, like, is this a deed? Is this the deed? To try and get them to reevaluate that recorded affidavit and come to the judgment that that's not a deed. Wait, why are we calling this note due again? Let's cancel this. Like, that was my hope. So it's still possible that that would happen, but to me it doesn't seem likely because eventually I got escalated to a lady who's like, yeah, legal, let's get on a call with the legal department. They'll have the firm answer. Now what this escalated lady, I don't know if she was the manager of the rep I was talking to, she said, it's not likely, but I can't guarantee anything. It's slated for foreclosure. So if I told you it's not going to happen and it happens, that would be bad. So I'm not going to, so she said, not likely to be foreclosed, but let's schedule a call with the legal team to figure out what you need to do. So I'm making myself available Tuesday for a call at a certain time, I don't know, to take care of the due on sale, hopefully get with the legal team. This will be a real interesting conversation. I'm really kind of curious to to know what they have. Like, do they have the original closing paperwork that we sent to them? Or, because also, here's the other crazy thing. An appraiser called me asking to go see the house. And I was like, oh yeah, well, that's not our house. We bought it from Mr. So-and-so, and then we sold it to Mrs. So-and-so on a land contract, so call them. Because I thought the appraiser was our buyer's appraiser, because they were trying to refinance out of the land contract. So, but it turns out that the appraiser worked for the mortgage company. They were like a law, I forget what they call it, but I was just talking to an appraiser who does some of these, where it's when they're going to foreclose, they try and go get an appraisal of the property so they know if there's any equity, how nice the house is, if it's in total disrepair. And so I told the appraiser for the lender on the Sub2 deal exactly that this was a Sub2 deal and that the interest of the property had been sold to somebody else, even from me. So if that information's with the lender, whether they agree, whether they're paying attention to it, whether they really care, like I don't think they really care. And they may even have to be careful with what they can share about what they know to me, because then it sort of discloses what they know to somebody else, and then they can be held accountable for what they know and be forced to take action on the due on sale. I don't know. I don't know if any of this is actually happening. I think that it's an anomaly. So the first representative I've talked to on the phone, I said, "Have you ever seen a due on sale happen? Have you ever seen this?" And she said, "No." She said, she says, "I've been at this company for 3 full years. I've never seen an acceleration on a note that was performing and not delinquent." And she's like, "This is crazy. There's a lot in your file here." It took her a long time to read through everything. And then her manager, we'll just call her manager that I talked to at the end, said the same thing. I said, have you been seeing these happen? Is this more frequent of an occurrence, these due on sale on a subject to type transaction? And she's like, "No, I've never actually seen it get accelerated." She says, I've seen she says she's seen due on sales at her mortgage company, but never seen one actually accelerated. So, and from her opinion, it wasn't likely to head to foreclosure, but she didn't know for sure. So she said, just assume that it is, because I don't know. Assume that it is until you're told clearly that it's not. It makes sense, because we don't want to just ignore this and then wake up one morning with 28 days or whatever to stop the auction. So that's kind of where we're at, I guess. My thought was, we do have a trust with the borrower on the trust somewhere, and so I was thinking, that's just a piece of paper I could send in. Maybe that would be something that would take care of the situation. They see the seller's name on the trust. Maybe they look at that and they say, that's good enough. Maybe if I recorded a release of interest pursuant to the affidavit memorandum of agreement to sell real estate. I got to be careful there, because if I released my interest entirely, like with a quitclaim, then our current ownership stake could be jeopardized. And so I would rather not do that. But if the fact that the affidavit that was recorded is the thing they're going off of to call the note due, then I would think that a release directly against that affidavit and interest that I swore that I had with the affidavit, then that would do the trick. Whatever. We're willing to, we'll probably end up, the simplest thing to do is just deed it back to the borrowers. This is the simplest thing to do. And then deed it back into the trust. Cat and mouse game. I learned that from Alan Sesker down in Texas, down in Austin. He's a master of Sub2 and wraps. He's an attorney, owns his own law office and does dozens, if not probably hundreds of Sub2s. And at any given time, I've heard him say he's had a due on sale on his desk before that he was handling. And I've heard him say that that's his strategy. Cat and mouse game, back and forth, deed it into the borrower's name, deed it back into the trust, giving us the equitable ownership within the trust. We will see what happens, but that's the update. Not much more to say than that, except what would I do? Don't file affidavits of memorandums of agreement on Sub2s. Don't do that. And don't send your closing documents to a Sub2 lender. Yeah, that's probably a good idea not to do that. And then if your buyer or lease option buyer is trying to refinance, don't order any payoffs until they have been fully approved for the loan. Point number 3. All right, I will record a subsequent video follow-up after my conversation with the legal department from this mortgage company next Tuesday at some point. Going to give you an update. Due on sale. It does happen, apparently, on performing notes, on performing loans, where you put the property into a trust. Friggin' A. Would never have thought that would happen, except we made some stupid mistakes on this one. So out of all the ones we have, this one kind of makes sense that it would happen. I do take comfort in the fact that both people said that they're not seeing like a ton of these happening. That's good, because my initial thought when I found out due on sale was happening was, oh, holy moly, I at least got one or maybe two others, Sub2 deals, Sub2 loans with this mortgage company. And we don't want any of those houses back. We never want any house back, obviously. But yeah, be prepared, have private money, hard money, a DSCR lender to be able to take care of it if you have to go that route. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks. Yeah, we'll see what happens Tuesday. Should be an interesting one. For sure. All right, peace out, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.